pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome. We'll move right on to citizens' comments, and we have a few that signed up. Ms. Childs.
I'm Shannon Childs.
Could you raise the microphone up? So there we go. Thank you.
How's that?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Shannon Childs. I'm Senior Vice President and Marketing Director for Kitsap Bank, and I reside at 623 Kitsap Street. I'm here tonight because I wanted to briefly discuss the stadium construction project for South Kitsap High School. Joining me are Dr. Michelle Reed, who is Superintendent of South Kitsap School District, and Tom O'Brien, the district's Director of Facilities. I'd like to start first by acknowledging Dr. Reed for conceiving of this incredible $1.6 million project to replace and renovate the athletic field and the track at South Kitsap High School. This project has grown, and Tom has been working diligently on also replacing the field lights with up-to-date energy-efficient LED lighting. This is really going to be a great, great facility for our community. This would be a challenging endeavor under any circumstance, and I applaud the vision not only to fix an ailing field, but also to transform it to a state-of-the-art community asset that will serve future generations of students and athletes and public at large for many years to come. Michelle and Tom and their team have done the near impossible in moving this project along with the greatest of care and expertise. An idea that started back in March gained critical funding support by May. The contractor was selected and ground broken in mid-June, and we are moving toward the finish line. The grand opening celebration will be Friday, September 4th, the first home football game of the season, where the South Kitsap Wolves will definitely defeat the Central Kitsap Cougars. And at that time, we're going to kick off Port Orchard's 125th anniversary festivities for that weekend. With the tremendous help of everyone at City Hall, this project has been moving forward at warp speed. And tonight I come with a request that deals with a final piece of the puzzle. Is it appropriate for me to come forward?
If you'd hand those, our clerk can hand them out to us if you'd like.
Okay, at Kitsap Bank, we like to be sustainable, and so I have printed on both sides. So you're going to note in the upper right-hand corner that we have side 1 and side 2 of those renderings. What we are trying to do is to build a sign package for the stadium that will welcome guests, provide directions, present the scores, and to be as impressive as the new field itself. And we're trying to get this together for the September 4th grand opening. So right now we're in crunch time. So I have given you a rendering, and I'm going to show you a sign on side 1, which is the scoreboard sign. And you can see the previous scoreboard, and you can see the proposed update to the scoreboard and the topper that goes on the board. And I show you that just as a frame of reference. And if you turn to side 2, this is a roof-mounted sign that will mark the field entrance. This is the building with the gates that people pass through when they're walking into the stadium. So this sign is going to be mounted low on the rooftop of the entry building. It will be lighted during night games at the same time that the field lights are on. It will be located within the school. This is located within the school district property. It's several hundred yards away from the main road, and it is not visible from Mitchell Avenue. Lighting is not expected, by the way, during the day or during the night when there is no game on the field. So I understand that there will be a discussion a little bit later this evening, and while I'm not here to comment specifically on that ordinance, I would like to just let you know that we are, time is of the essence here, and we are trying to move forward with this sign package so that we're going to be able to present the full package at our September 4th event. So any help that you can provide, any process that you can put in place this evening would be really excellent. If I were able to pick up or give the order to build this sign starting tomorrow morning, I can guarantee that we'll have it in place by September 4th. Tom O'Brien and I are here and available if we can answer any of your questions, and I want to thank you for your consideration. And I'd like to ask Dr. Reed to say a few words.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for your service on behalf of our community. I know these are thankless jobs in many ways. I also want to thank the planning department and engineering folks. I know Tom's been working significantly with folks to get this project going. I just think every once in a while, maybe sometimes once in a lifetime, an opportunity like this comes where you have a school district or a community entity partnering with private folks to create something really special for young people, and this is such a time. So I think it would be great if we could move forward with this special circumstance, if you will, to enable us to have a really festive evening on September 4th. I think it's something for our community to celebrate, and that spirit of partnership, I think, is really important and part of what makes Port Orchard so strong. So anyhow, I hope you can find your way to doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Wilson has signed up.
Good evening, and in continuing in the spirit of partnership, I'm here representing the POBSA with our POBSA president, Bobby Stewart. And we would like to read a letter to you. We've given copies to each of the council members and the mayor from the Port Orchard Bay Street Association regarding the hanging baskets. The Port Orchard City Council, POBSA, the Port Orchard Bay Street Association, would like to propose a partnership with the City of Port Orchard for the fertilization of the hanging baskets that beautify our downtown from late May to late September. These colorful baskets add so much to the Bay Street experience for our pedestrians as well as for the thousands of vehicles that pass through downtown each week. Currently, the baskets are watered on a drip system that was purchased by the POBSA in 2010. This drip system takes a tremendous burden off the POBSA and the City of Port Orchard, as the watering is very low maintenance, requiring only that the POBSA maintain the system and monitor that the system is working properly throughout the summer. Fertilizing the baskets, however, is very tricky. POBSA has done quite a bit of research pertaining to the fertilizing of these baskets, including looking into an inline fertilizing system. These systems tie into the drip system, but because this is a commercial system involving numerous businesses, the permitting would be tricky and there could be environmental concerns. POBSA has also looked into having a landscaper fertilize, as we did last summer. However, this requires specialized equipment, and all the commercial landscapers we approached this year were unable to even bid the job for us. We'd even considered having volunteers from the POBSA fertilize the baskets by hand, but insurance concerns have prevented this approach. We've come to the conclusion that the most reasonable solution would be to ask the city to partner with us by using the City of Port Orchard watering truck and staff to apply water-soluble fertilizer to the baskets 3 to 4 times during the summer months. By keeping the baskets well-fed, they will have less of a tendency to take on the undernourished look they now have. While nothing can guarantee the baskets will look perfect all summer, a little fertilizer will go a long way to keeping them looking good. These plants are a significant financial investment, and the POBSA would like to be able to maintain the baskets to their full potential. Vibrant plantings reflect well on the downtown merchants as well as the City of Port Orchard, and POBSA appreciates all the partnering the city already does with the POBSA for the baskets, including hanging and removal. POBSA is also partnering with Kitsap Community Resources on the watering and fertilizing of the sidewalk planters, so this request is only for fertilizing the hanging baskets. If it's not possible to take on the fertilizing this year, we ask that the city please consider budgeting for fertilizing up to 4 times next summer.
Bobby Stewart, President of the Bay Street Association. And what does green mean? Are we over?
Yeah.
Oh, go.
Bobby, go.
Okay.
You get to speak.
Oh, I get to speak. We do have a problem right now. This letter is wonderful, and Kathleen put it together today, and she is so in charge of our flowers. She is practically single-handed put those flowers up, and we did spend a great deal of money on them. And what we're just asking, if the council could see to it that we get a little fertilizer before our 125th anniversary. We would really like our town to look nice for that event, and things are sort of falling apart with the baskets right now. We do have Plan B, though, so Kathleen and I will be up on the ladders, and I guess what I'm asking, if anyone on council would like to hold the ladders for us. That's all I can say. So thank you very much for your time, and I just hope you see that our town needs to be beautiful, and it is a destination, and we could have as many as, Mr. Mayor, 10,000, 20,000 people come.
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say, but whatever come to our event for our anniversary, we want it to look really good. Thank you.
So, Bobby, before you guys leave, our city attorney, is there any legality issues? I assume you've seen this letter.
I haven't seen it. I did.
Maybe you heard what they said then. In other words,
Yeah,
as long as you're standing here, let's just find out.
We're open to discussion. I mean, you know. Would get a very short ladder. It's not going to be 15 feet. We don't plan on a parachute or something, you know, to get off it. But Kathleen and I did take 4 planters down last year and replant them, and they came back to life. So we're accustomed to this kind of adversity.
I was hoping that the question was actually whether or not there was any legalities with the city employees fertilizing.
A private.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's all we want.
That's what I.
That was the question. I believe.
Rather than having the discussion now during the comment, can we just make it an agenda item later in our business?
Yeah, we should.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
And they could tell them while they're still here.
Now, as customary, if anyone else would like to address the council, please raise your hand to be recognized. Anyone?
For the record, my name is Richard Brown. I'm a local realtor. Have been a developer in the past. I put in a request to the city for information on stormwater, and why we were told at a meeting that what we would present possibly on a project on Tremont Avenue may not be vested due to some reason. And I asked where the information came from, and I was told the city attorney. That bothered me. I called around to several attorneys, several jurisdictions, and asked, is there something out there that we should know about in the city of Port Orchard that other people are applying to stormwater? And the answer was no. There was a court case at the appellate court level, and it had to do with stormwater and a idea of vesting as to shorelines management. There was also a Puget Sound Pollution Control Board's ruling that brought on that lawsuit and one more lawsuit that's before the appellate court that basically said that stormwater is not vested according to a 1980 vesting doctrine that was passed by the legislature because it didn't include stormwater. So I asked for the request to see a letter or something that would have staff take direction from the city attorney that is not an ordinance and is not part of the comprehensive plan that would say, well, if you do a project and you spend $35,000 on stormwater, we can't say that it's going to be vested. I don't believe there's anything out there that says that, and I believe the city attorney is wrong. So if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I believe I had several telephone calls from different developers and builders asking me what this was all about. So the more I investigated it, I found that the city of Port Orchard, as far as I know, is the only one that is telling its clients, which I'm one of them, that there is no vesting as to stormwater. Thank you.
Okay, I had a chance to look at some of the accusations that you've just put forward here, and I did talk to our city attorney. I think this would be the probably appropriate time to have her read her response to those accusations. Could you do that for me, please?
You want me to just read that email that I wrote? Or?
Yeah, I think that, well, yeah, and then...
Okay, well, first of all, I did not give an opinion that he's describing. I haven't given any opinion at all. My opinion is that the city must enforce its adopted codes as they're written. I have given no opinion that the city should enforce its codes any differently than the way they are written and adopted by the city council. If the law changes, I will be asking the city council to change the city's codes to conform with the law. The memo that I think he is confusing with this opinion that doesn't exist, he asked me if I had given an opinion about vesting and stormwater, and I thought he was referring to a confidential memo that I had written to the staff about the school district. And I told him, I can't discuss that. That's a confidential memo. So he made a request under the Public Records Act for a copy of that memo, and we were not able to give it to him because it was totally confidential, attorney-client privileged. So I think there's some confusion that the information in that memo is what he thinks is an opinion that I've given that stormwater codes don't vest. And actually, there's no permit involved in that opinion, so it's on a different issue. So I have never stated that the city's code provides authority to alter an approval based on changes to the law made after issuance to a permit. Apparently, an opinion has been given by an attorney by the name of Dennis Reynolds to contradict this statement, but I've never given an opinion like that. So it's unfortunate that they've hired an attorney to provide them with an opinion to refute an opinion that I've never given.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Oh,
just say one last thing. I do want to say that with regard to staff, there may be an inclination of the staff to let people know that there are these court cases out there about stormwater, and that is born solely out of this information, or willingness to give applicants all the information they can possibly have so they can prepare themselves for what's going to happen in the future. There's even state law that says cities should provide applicants with not only the development code citations so they can understand what the zoning is and development codes that apply to their property, but also pending zoning changes. So staff may be telling them that there are cases out there that could affect stormwater vesting in the future. And that's what I think is the confusion. But I have given no written or oral opinion to the staff that says generally that stormwater doesn't vest or that it vests. I haven't any opinion at all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clausen.
Just a quick question, if I'm understanding you correctly. If a project is submitted, then it is vested under the current regulations unless a court nullifies that particular regulation?
Well, it depends, because it depends on what type of application it is. Not all applications are subject to the vested rights doctrine.
In particular, the stormwater issues, are they vested under the current stormwater regulations unless a court invalidates them?
If it's an application that's subject to the vested rights doctrine, then we would process that under the codes as they exist today, and as the codes exist today, that would be vested under the city's codes.
Thank you.
And when the law changes, we'll bring an ordinance in front of you to change the codes.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Please.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I'm Teresa Osinski. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Home Builders Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I actually learned a great deal in this little exchange you just had, but I did want to be on the record as just letting you know that the development community in Kitsap County struggles under an enormous amount of regulatory burdens. Stormwater is an extremely expensive factor in any construction site in today's building reality. It used to be, think about stormwater mostly with really large projects, commercial projects, but now even a single family residential structure can be affected by our state's stormwater mandates. So anytime there's any threat or insinuation that a jurisdiction may be looking at handling their existing codes differently or actually taking up a new code process, it's a significant concern. Significant thousands and thousands of dollars spent by the time somebody gets ready to build. And stormwater is roughly 40% of the cost of a project. So when you're talking about potentially no longer recognizing the investment that was made under a current code and that code could be overruled or overwritten, that's a significant concern that we would certainly encourage lots of public process and discussion for, in much the same way you've been honoring the needs of the public and the construction industry on these other issues we've talked about of late, impact fees, and other things of that nature. It's a very serious issue. I wasn't a part of the conversations. I can't speak to that. I thought this was very interesting tonight to hear the response, but I did feel I just wanted to make sure it was really clear to you that this is a huge ticket item in the cost of construction, and I would really encourage caution if there's any discussions about changing the code. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Please.
Mike Elias, Kitsap County Association of Realtors. Since the city attorney referenced the letter from Dennis Reynolds, I thought I'd drop off the original copy to the clerk. And you may not have had time to see the second letter I wrote about transportation impact fees, so let me take the latter and the former. So on the latter, we want to thank the council and the mayor for the time you gave us. You guys went above and beyond giving the stakeholders an opportunity to express our concerns. We're used to going to events and getting 3 minutes, and I think we each probably got 20 or 30, or maybe even I probably took more than my share at those meetings. So thank you very much. And as I mentioned in the email, we hope the information we provided to you will help you in your deliberation process, because we know you have it on the agenda tonight. The second issue does have to do with stormwater, and understand from our perspective, the reason we wrote it, kind of continuing what Teresa said, is that we had members and developers approach us about this issue. But as referenced in my letter, I did quote your attorney, who identically in the letter where she said in the email response to a citizen that she did not provide any specific guidance to stormwater in general. So that is in our letter. It was just mainly to point out if there was some change in policy, at what point is it going to come to the council? So you had the procedural issue of when's the council going to get involved if there is, but of course tonight she's clarified that has not been the case. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, one last chance. All right, we'll move on then to executive session. We have to go into an executive session for up to 10 minutes pursuant to RCW 4230-110, 1 and I. The City Council will be in the executive session in regards to potential litigation, and we'll be back
And we're doing that before we approve the agenda? I mean, we're doing
Yes.
that right now?
Yes. Okay. Full of the agenda items. Is there any amendments to the published agenda? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to add an agenda item, and I would like to put it after D and before E, and that is a discussion on the email and letter we received from the Kitsap Association of Realtors.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, dual second, to open for discussion, comments. All right, the motion on the floor is to add E, which would go, of course, after D, and it's discussion of the realtor letter. Yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to add an item which would become F, and that is to discuss the request of the Port Orchard Bay Street Association for fertilizing the hanging baskets.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. We'll be voting on adding F, item F, fertilizing, and based on the proposal for Port Orchard Bay Street Association. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Thank you. We'll add that.
I'd like to add item
Mr.
G,
Patanzu?
and it would be the purchase of 640 Bay Street.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to discuss and make a decision on the purchase of 640 Bay Street. Any other discussion or comments? Seeing none, we'll be adding item G, discussion on 640 Bay Street purchase. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you.
Then I would move that item H be the transportation impact fees, unless someone else has any other items they want to add.
I don't have any more room to cross this out.
So the motion is that we move E to H.
Yes.
And I'd like a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a second. Any other discussion or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving E to H, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Thank you. We have a somewhat modified agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I would
Now
move. I would move that we accept the agenda as amended.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we're going to be approving the amended agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're at item 4, consent agenda. What is your pleasure? Yes,
I
Mr.
move that
Clausen.
we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or comments? Seeing none, then we'll be approving the consent agenda as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Very good. All right, we have our work cut out for us tonight. So I would like to move on to item 5, a presentation. And Ms. Steffensrud, am I saying that correctly? Would you please come up? I would love to read a proclamation. And then our city clerk will be putting something up on the screens that I would like to ask you to talk to in just a minute and invite everyone. Okay. So I will now read the proclamation. Whereas on August 14th, 1945, the people of the United States received word of the end of World War II and greeted the news of the Allies' noble victory with joyous celebration, humility, and spiritual reflection. And whereas the victory marked the accumulation of an unprecedented national effort that defeated the forces of aggression, brought freedom to subjugated nations, and ended the horrors of the Holocaust. And whereas these historic accomplishments were achieved through the collective service and personal sacrifice of the people of the United States, both those who served in uniform and those who supported them on the home front, and the nearly 3,000 Americans or 300,000 Americans who gave their lives in service to their country during World War II. And whereas August 14, 1945 marked not only the end of the war, but also the beginning of an unprecedented era of rebuilding led by the United States to restore the societies of both the Allies and the former foes alike, and the formation of an array of organizations and institutions which helped strengthen America democracy by promoting civic engagement, volunteerism, and service to the community and country. And whereas the courage, dedication, self-sacrifice, and compassion of the ordinary heroes of World War II generation continue to inspire our nation, especially the men and women who are currently serving, protecting our country around the world. And whereas the entire World War II generation, military and civilians alike, have provided a model of national unity and community that will continue to serve as a source of inspiration for current and future generations of Americans to come, together to work for the continued prosperity of the United States and the world. Now, therefore, I, Timothy C. Mathis, Mayor of Port Orchard, do hereby proclaim Friday, August 14th, 2015, Spirit of 45 Day, in the city of Port Orchard, and I call upon all employees and citizens of the city of Port Orchard to observe this month with appropriate recognition thereof. So, thank you so much, and would you tell us about what you have planned for the Spirit of 45, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Rebecca Steffensrud. I work for Bonaventure Senior Living, and our local community is called Park Vista in Port Orchard. And many of the communities that this company operates celebrate this. So we decided to celebrate it in our own way, which is when we brought the proclamation to you. This Saturday, we're holding an event, and it's an all-day event, and it'll be an annual event marking and commemorating the last day of World War II. And the events we're having, of course, Mr. Mayor will be coming out to speak, but we'll be giving some awards to many of the veterans in our community. We have veterans in our assisted living, our independent living, and our memory care unit. But it's going to be a full day of activities, starting with an 8 a.m. pancake breakfast. There will be a wreath ceremony and unveiling of a Veterans Wall of Honor that will be honoring the veterans in our community. There will be a barbecue at noon. It's all open to the public. And there'll be, in commemorating the 1940s, we'll be having a USO show, swing dance performers, etc. So there'll be a car show and kind of a lot of 1940s themed events. So again, thank you for honoring it.
Okay, so then public is welcome basically from 8 to 5.
Yes.
And there'll be various activities. And I know you're going to have a veterans wall, and that's something you just added?
No, that's actually been included. We just didn't have everything on the flyer.
Oh, okay.
There will be a wreath ceremony. We were trying to get the a color guard, but we were not able to secure that. Everyone was busy.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So, thank you so very much for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we don't have a public hearing tonight, so we'll move on to business item A, approval of July 21st council work study session.
I move approval of the July 21st council work study session minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any corrections, additions? Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out that although I was absent from the study session, I did watch the video on it, so I do plan to vote unless there's an objection.
Okay, thank you.
I too plan to vote.
You're comfortable that you watched it? Okay, good enough. Any other comments? Seeing none, then we're going to be voting on approval of the July 21st council work study session meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Motion carried. Business item B, approval of July 28th, 2015 council meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Clausen.
I move that we approve the minutes for July 28th council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussion, corrections, additions. Yes.
I'll be abstaining. I was absent.
Let the record show that Mr. Cartwright will be abstaining. Any other corrections, additions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the July 28th council meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Item C, approval of amendment number 1 to contract number 03315. Ms. Reinerson, could you lead us into this one and tell us about it, please?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So on July 23, 2015, the city received notice that the public defender is changing their business name and contact person following the departure from their firm of John Cross. In the contract effective January 1, 2015, under Section 14, assigning or subcontract, it requires written consent of the city. This request is to change the name of the business to LaCrosse and Murphy PLLC, and the attorneys undertaking the firm's public defense work for the city to Luke Park, David LaCrosse, and Jacob Murphy. Staff recommends the approval of this, and I do believe that Mr. Murphy is in the audience should the council have any questions.
Council, yes, Ms. Lucarelli.
I move to approve the name and persons change regarding the public defender contract as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussions or questions. Discussion or questions? All right. Seeing none, we're going to be voting on the approval of amendment number 1, contract number 03315. Public defense work. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Carries. All right. We're at adoption of ordinance approving interim regulations for signage. And that is number D. And Mr. Bond?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. City staff continues to work on updating the city's sign regulations in light of recent Supreme Court decision Reed versus the Town of Gilbert. However, this update is not quite ready for City Council review and consideration. Council has expressed a desire to look at regulations pertaining to roof signs on an expedited timeline, and as such, interim zoning regulations which would allow limited roof signs in the community facilities zone have been prepared. Pursuant to RCW 3670A 390 and RCW 3563-200, the City Council shall hold a public hearing on the interim zoning ordinance within 60 days of its adoption, or before October 12, 2015. During the next council meeting immediately following the public hearing, the City Council shall adopt findings of fact on the subject of the interim zoning ordinance and either justify its continued imposition or repeal the ordinance. Staff recommendation is to approve the interim regulations.
Council, Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the interim zoning ordinance as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussions and comments. Mr. Clausen.
I just wanted to compliment the school district and Kitsap Bank for working together on this. This is a wonderful, wonderful project. I wish we could do more of these, and I'm glad we could participate in our small little piece of helping this go forward. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I would like to compliment and thank our city attorney and Nick Bond for preparing this interim ordinance as quickly as they did so that we could accommodate the needs of our community partners. Thank you very much.
Mr. Childs.
Understanding that the school district needs this permit, the sign permit right away, you know, like tomorrow kind of thing. What does it mean about the 60 days holding a public hearing? How does that work if we're...
This is an interim zoning ordinance. It can be adopted on an emergency basis, which means that if there's a supermajority of the council tonight to adopt it, vote in favor of it, it will become effective upon adoption, which means that Nick can start processing the permit tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chang.
Can you tell me some of the rationale for limiting this to community facilities?
Well, I think that when you see the fully revised sign ordinance, we're going to look at how roof signs are allowed and not allowed, and there's going to be some additional criteria, and we're still trying to iron those out. But for now, we didn't want to allow roof signs throughout the entire city without having fully thought out and vetted regulations.
Could I just say that, excuse me, once we bring the sign code back to you, this can then be incorporated within it. And at that point in time, you can look at allowing roof signs in other areas of the city. And I think it also makes things cleaner because as an interim zoning ordinance, you still have to do SEPA on it and you still have to follow the regular procedures. So to keep this as narrow as possible is probably best for right now.
Thank you.
Discussion, comments, or questions? Yes.
Quick comment.
Mr.
I'll be
Cartwright.
there on the 4th, and go Wolves.
All right. Any others? All right, then we're going to be voting on the motion to approve the interim zoning ordinance as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. You have the majority, supermajority, and that passes. Thank you. Okay. We're going on to item E, which was added, and it's a discussion about the realtor's letter. So, yes.
Since I placed that on the agenda, I will start the dialogue. I read the email we received, and I heard the citizen comments this evening. I heard what our city attorney had to say, and I appreciate all of that. What I personally would like to see happen is the stormwater issue and the questions raised be presented or vetted through our utilities committee so they can come back with a more deep understanding of everything that's happened. Because we have been asked to do something, and I would like to see it. And it seems to me that handling it through the Utilities Committee would be an appropriate place.
Is that a motion?
Well, that was how I was starting the dialogue. I wasn't making a motion, but I would be glad to.
Second.
Okay.
Please. Restate your motion for the record then.
I move that the letter we received from the Kitsap County Association of Realtors be forwarded to the Utility Committee for review and bringing back a report to the full council.
I'd second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion and comments.
Did we get more than one letter? And do you need to specify which one? We seem to have gotten at least 2 letters.
We got
today.
an email and an attachment.
Right.
Is what we got.
So you're talking about the stormwater letter?
Yes.
Correct,
Okay.
the stormwater letter.
Okay, because there was one about...
the traffic impact fees.
Okay.
No, specifically stormwater. I believe that should be handled by utilities.
You talk about the impact fee, too.
Yeah.
So your motion is
regarding the stormwater,
letter.
correct.
Motion that the stormwater letter be forwarded to the Utility Committee.
Utilities, yes.
Okay, everybody clear on that? Now we open discussion and more comments. None. We're going to be voting on the motion that the stormwater letter be forwarded to the Utility Committee to be worked on. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries.
Can I just say for our guests from the school district and from that are here on the sign thing that you're welcome to stay as long as you want, but it's not rude if you need to leave. They don't feel obligated to be here when the chickens start crying.
Okay, let's see. Now let me make sure I don't, let's see, the F. C, D, E, F. And
POBSA.
Yes, fertilizer, flower pots, POBSA. What's your pleasure?
Okay, again, since I placed that on the agenda, I would just like to hear from Mark Dorsey, from our Public Works Director, if there's any way we can accommodate this.
Sounds like we need to fertilize one time this year. Is that what I was hearing?
At least one time.
At least one time?
Well, I guess there's 2 questions. One is, are you talking about trying to do something this year as opposed to doing something in the 2016 budget?
I guess I'm talking about both, because they did have a request that we fertilize before the 125th celebration, and then there was a request to do something in 2016. And I'm looking for, I don't know how difficult, I don't think you're personally going to get up on the ladder like Bobby and Kathleen are. You know, how does this happen?
No, I think to answer the latter question, for 2016, it's a simple matter of putting it in as a supplementary budget item and having the council approve the cost. Do know that the reason the city council strategically moved away from that was through a very long deliberation of cost and time associated with the prevailing wage doing that work. So it wasn't as if the council just one day got tired of it. There was an intentional reason to move away from that. So I would remind council of that conversation. To do it this year, it would be a matter of funding mainly the labor for doing that, working within the existing budget if council so directs. It is time intensive because it's going down and stopping and watering each basket, and I can't tell you exactly what that would be, but it would just be additional finding time. And I know that one of our main park person is out right now with some sort of a hip surgery thing, so we're down a staff member who usually handles that. But if council directs the work to be done, then we'll find somebody to do it and figure a way to pay for it.
Mr. Cartwright.
I just wanted to know, how many baskets are there?
28.
28? It takes how long to...
No, that's planters. I'm not sure how many baskets.
28 baskets, and so we're talking fertilizing 28 baskets one time between now and September 4th.
Sooner versus later. We don't want to fertilize them the day before the event, and
how
it has
long,
no effect.
And I see the Bremerton one because I work downtown, and I see them, watering the plants, and I don't know how long it takes to put water-soluble fertilizer on 28 plants.
I'm willing to make a motion that we do this one time in the next week or two, and that I would also with my motion would like public properties to take up looking at 2016 and making a recommendation back to us. So that's my motion, and then
second.
All right, let's do it. We have a motion and a second to do this one time this year.
This year, and for public properties
to
look at this issue for 2016,
recommendation.
make a recommendation to the full council whether we want to implement it in the full budget. I think if my memory serves me correctly, part of our concern with us not wanting to take this over is that previously there was consideration whether it was appropriate for LTAC or not, and it wasn't. That we could buy the baskets, but we couldn't maintain the baskets, if I remember correctly. So this has to come out of general fund money and not LTAC, or be considered as part of LTAC going forward. So
can it come out of
our city attorney, I see, may be able to shed some light on this.
Well, I just wanted to tell you there is a statute, RCW 3521-700, that allows the city to act through the council and expend money on tourist promotion, which I think it would be covered under tourist promotion because it beautifies the city.
Right, I believe
that was
Mr. Patonsu's right. It'd still come out of the general budget. It wouldn't be out of LTAC money.
And then this year would come out of the general fund, and it would just be absorbed as normal course of business, so there wouldn't need to be a budget adjustment. It would be more a work assignment by our public works director. Next year, we could certainly take that into consideration.
But if the city attorney is saying it's a tourist promotion, then that really is an LTAC.
Right, but LTAC is...
I know we've talked about it before, but you just said it.
This is a separate statute from LTAC. This is a general tourist promotion statute that allows you to spend money on that.
And the LTAC for this year, Jerry, has already been committed for 2015.
So it's not so it wouldn't be a gift of public funds issue, and the prevailing wage issue that I remember was us giving them money to hire a contractor, and the contractor had the prevailing wage issue. So this I think seems kosher, unless I'm hearing something.
Well, no, the reason we decided to donate the money as opposed to the city doing it was it was much more cost efficient to do it from private sector because you weren't paying prevailing wage. So just know that you'll be paying 2 employees 4 hours or whatever it takes in the purchasing of the materials. So, you're going to look at a fairly substantial, currently unbudgeted item, but, I'm not going to stand in the way of healthy plants. So just let me know what we're doing.
Fred, did you have
It only happens every 125 years.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to just say. If it's part of the 125-year celebration, and this is just part of an enhancement for that celebration, is there money left in the 125-year celebration budget?
Yeah,
There is not.
Mark, I think we can get this done.
Oh, yeah.
Within the budget. I mean, there's something else maybe will be postponed until 1st of next year or something, but we're talking a small amount of money here, I think.
Yeah,
let me say talking a few hours out of their work schedule. It's not like we're going to be building a new city hall. It's not that big a deal.
Let the treasurer say this. If it's the council's desire for the city to fertilize the plants, that will take place upon your motion.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion? Yes.
Could volunteers fertilize those plants?
Liability.
Not really. They're up high. They're up about 10 feet off the ground, or maybe even 12 feet off the ground.
Yeah, no,
Bobby could do it.
No, we don't want Bobby.
And by the time the celebration
we're talking
occurs,
about
we just do it.
using the city's, putting the water tank, the 1,000-gallon water tank on a truck, filling it with fertilizer that probably needs some sort of, handling. So I don't think volunteers. Yeah, we'll just handle it with our staff and get it done and work within the budget the best we
All
can.
right. Everybody clear on the motion that's on the floor?
Yes.
That we're going to go ahead and do this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Okay. We're on item G, and item G is we did have an executive session regarding a purchase of a piece of property on 640 Bay Street. And we wanted to, in fact, the council has decided to put that on the agenda for a decision, and I will open the floor and ask the council. Yes, Mr. Patonson.
Make a motion to for the purchase of 640 Bay Street, and this proposed action, I think, has 5 conditions to it that were set forth in the executive session. One, that we are requiring it, the purchase price, the reduced purchase price of $140,420.71. Change the legal description to eliminate 5 feet. The Jeffcoats claim they have required an adverse possession by adverse possession. Require the Dawsons pay the cost for a boundary line adjustment. Condition the amendment on the court to enter an order approving the amendment. Set the closing 5 days after the approval of the boundary line adjustment and entry by the receivership court of the order from the court.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Open the floor for discussion or comments. Mr.
I just, ideally, I don't think we want to be developers or own property, but as we know, as we went through this process, it was going to cost us considerably more money to go through an abatement process and take possession of this property and clean it up ourselves. We negotiated a very favorable agreement that we, in essence, covered their cost to clean up the property, and that's what we're doing here. We ran into a hiccup with a neighbor over an easement, and so we've negotiated a reduced price and not acquired the headaches associated with that easement, and have gotten a better deal, I believe. So that's, I'm not for holding this property any longer than we have to, but I don't want to sell it to someone. My vote won't be to sell it to someone to hold in their land bank. I want to see someone come forward with a project for our downtown, and I don't know that we even, in my opinion, need to make any money on this sale. I think that I'd be in favor of selling the property immediately if someone wanted to develop a project on the site.
Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Kirkland.
I think for me, Rob touched on it. The issue was that we had a burned out shell of a building, and we were looking at a long and lengthy legal process, as well as a lot of money to get that cleaned up if we had to go condemnation abatement. So this was the lesser expensive route to purchase it, and I agree. As soon as we can get rid of it to a developer for a project, I'd be happy to do that as well. But I think it looks better not having a burned out shell. We've talked about broken window syndromes in downtown, and broken windows invite more broken windows. And so I'd rather see a vacant lot than a burned out shell of a building, and that's why I'm voting for this.
Okay. Mr. Clausen.
I agree with what's been said here. I think, though, that once we conclude this purchase, that we need to aggressively solicit potential projects from private developers. I don't want us just to sit on it and forget about it. So I think the property needs to be redeveloped, and we need to encourage developers to come forward with some proposals and see what we can pull together.
Okay. Yes, Mr.
Well, I think as most council members are aware, I'm against the purchase of the property, and I do understand what you guys are saying, and hopefully it'll sell right away, and then I'll be happy too. But I'm going to vote no. But I'm not voting no on the idea that for the agreement of the 5 feet for the Jeffcoats and to resolve that. I'm just voting on principle. I'm around here, and I've seen that property that we bought across the street and turned a $500,000 property into a parking lot. So I'm nervous about being a landowner for the city, and for that reason I'll be voting no. But I do understand what you guys are saying.
The only thing I would add is that I think it is a great opportunity, and I would not be averse to the city making a profit on it.
We'll bring every idea to you, so hopefully there'll be several, and we'll get to look at them. Yes.
I too am supportive of the purchase, particularly I think the expeditious nature with which the building came down once we entered the original purchase agreement was in the city's best interest. I think it was an important thing that we completed that was completed, and now this is simply finishing the agreement, executing the agreement, and so I'm supportive of it. Listening to some comments about what's going to happen to the property, perhaps that is something we should put on the public properties agenda also, to start some movement on that so that it does not get lost or forgotten.
Completely agree.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
I initially voted no on the purchase of this property, and I'm also going to vote no again tonight because I have very strong feelings also about the city purchasing property for development. Again, the loss that we took on the property across the street, I think was substantial. I am actually not opposing, though, this 5-foot purchase. The easement, I think this was well handled, and I am in favor of that, but just not in favor of the city purchasing the property.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, then we are going to be voting on the changes that we discussed and have been discussed here to the purchase of the property at 640 Bay Street, and we're going to be going ahead and completing the purchase. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Let the record show that 2 are in opposition, but the majority rules, so this passes. Thank you. Okay, we're at item H, transportation impact fee discussion. Want to lead us off?
I will.
Okay.
I'm just raising my hand tonight. I have, at the last work study, I had 9 questions I read into the record. I even have more questions tonight. But the other paper that I have passed out to council, and I have given a copy to the city clerk so that she can put it on the screen for the public to see, is in doing my due diligence on impact fees, I just put together some numbers that I thought might be useful in our discussions. And what I did is I took the formula that was provided to us by our consultant, and I used the revised population and employment numbers, and I calculated what our anticipated revenue would be if the impact fee were $2,000, $2,500, or $3,000. And so that's available to everyone to see. I subtotaled the impact fee revenue generation. That formula indicates that the city will pay 16.3%. I've calculated that. And then that we would have grant or other funding for 50%. So those are the numbers you see, and then the total revenue. The other exercise I did was, we all know that Tremont is a very important element in the council's deliberations moving forward. So I took the estimated $17,500,000 for Tremont and worked it backwards, and that impact fee, if you use the same formula, makes the impact fee for Tremont by itself $754.15. I rounded it simply to $750. I also calculated then of each of those the three impact fee amounts. There is, again, the city's responsibility in the formula for 16.30%. So over 20 years, I wanted to know what that expense line would be for us, because we would have to put that in our budget. And so I simply divided the city's portion by 20 years and got an annual budget amount for us. And then I did the same thing for Tremont, and then noted on the Tremont number that did not include any debt servicing that we may have for bonding. That this is just, again, myself doing my due diligence, looking at the impact fees, and it was information that I thought I could put in a simple format and give to the council for their consideration. When I was working on that process, I came up with questions, and I wanted to read them into the record. My first question is, what is the likely success that we will get the 7,820 new trips? I mean, I don't know. What is our success of reaching that particular goal? And when you look at the formula, the commercial or employee trips make up about 60% of the new trips. And you can see when you look at the spreadsheet, the amount of money that we would be getting from the commercial development. So that led me to the question of how many square feet does it take to accommodate the 4,698 trips that we're anticipating from commercial growth. So I don't know what that looks like. Would this be one Walmart? Would it be a couple of Harrison Hospital facilities? You know, I don't know what commercial development would look like for that many trips. And that's just a question. These are my thought process. And then what are our plans? Do we have to promote economic development? We've heard many times that where we are with our retail is probably going to stay there until we have more rooftops. So that gives a timing issue to me, in that when you look at the revenue that's coming in, that's not going to be straight lined over 20 years. It's going to come in at different paces throughout the 20 years. So what does that look like? What does that mean to us? And then that led me to the McCormick Woods. My comment is that McCormick Woods, their new home sales average over 60% of the new home construction in our city. And I didn't know if the McCormick Woods transportation agreement was taken into consideration when this formula was developed. So when we look at the single-family residence of trips, which is 2,052, that's roughly 100 homes a year. And if 60 of those are coming out of McCormick Woods, that only leaves 40 that's not McCormick Woods. And so I'm just wondering how that impacts our formulas when we're looking at things. And those are just, these are just questions that come to my mind. And then the growth projections show an increase of 1,725 multifamily units over the 20 years, or about 85 units per year. And since 2008, we have only had 2 years with multifamily building permits issued, 2012 and 2013. So that leads me to the question, do we anticipate more apartment buildings or mixed-use buildings after our sub-area plans are developed for our centers? And have we considered other transportation alternatives to reduce congestion? More or extended bus service, more park and rides, more bike trails? I mean, what other alternatives have we considered rather than just roads? And my last question is, what is the probability of receiving the 50% funding for all of these projects? Because that's the biggest issue in the formula, is 50% grant funding. Have we identified what those sources are? And will we have a plan including a timeline to solicit those grants? I mean, to me, that's all part of making the decision. Anyway, I just wanted to be on the record with my questions and open it up for discussion, and to let the public know this is where my due diligence thoughts have been going.
Yes, Mr. Clausen.
You know, I appreciate your work here, Beck, because I think this answers a lot of questions that I had, but there are still questions that I've been struggling with, and you mentioned 60% of the new homes have been coming out of McCormick Woods. The transportation impact agreement that the county developed with McCormick Woods was developed with the expectation that their projects would impact the intersections and road improvements out in that particular area, and the dollar amount was established. And $2,000 comes to mind, something like that. If we implement something like this without considering what they have already done out there as being unique, we're basically going to be siphoning off some of the funds that's derived out of that growth in that area to support road improvements elsewhere in the city, and it may not give us enough funds to deal with the impacts of the roads or the improvements to the roads that need to be made out there. So that's a concern. I'm not quite sure how you would somehow keep the agreement in place with McCormick and put something on top of, so that we can be assured that their growth out there is dealing with the traffic congestion that's a result of their growth.
Potentially 2 zones, maybe?
I'm sorry?
I think we need to study some zones.
Yeah, I think,
have some thoughts here.
I think that might be a solution, because again, I don't want to siphon money away from something that's already been established to benefit or to solve a problem somewhere else in the city. We've talked at the study sessions a number of times about potential development, for example, up on Sedgwick, which you know my feeling on solving the state's problems. I'm not at all in support of that. But regardless, those are impacts on that side of the city that are a result of that kind of development that may occur over there. And that kind of needs, I guess I'm supporting zones, because that kind of needs to deal with their own.
I think we can all agree that there's a need. It's just what amount that the market can bear, I think is a big question for me. I share Mr. Clausen's concerns that we have this development agreement with the McCormick Woods area, where the majority of our development is happening, they've got a fee of, I believe, $1,980. I'd like to find a way, and I have very valid concerns that we would do exactly that, or future councils would do exactly what Mr. Clausen was describing, is we rob, those improvements don't happen, we rob that pot of money to fix our other transportation needs. So I think we need to, and we haven't done this yet, I think we need to look at this zone concept, potentially leave that alone, that the rest of the city have a similar impact fee, somewhere around what McCormick is already paying, and there might need to be a third zone that's citywide, that's projects, potentially it's Tremont or other areas that affect both zones. So is it realistic that staff could prepare some analysis for our work study next week? Or is that...
Well, I have had this conversation with our transportation engineer who is out this week, but we're going to talk again on Monday. So I think by next Tuesday, the work that I've done, I could certainly bring forward. But what the engineer has told me is that they've completed our transportation model, the computer model that simulates trip generation throughout the city. And they could very easily at this point run a couple of different zones in their model and determine which trips are using which projects that would be on the list. And I haven't used this type of computer modeling before, so I'm not sure exactly what that entails, but apparently it's not as hard as it sounds to me. Anyway, so if council wanted to do that, I think what direction we would need as staff is direction to go back to the consultant and ask him to run that model, defining McCormick as a zone, defining the rest of the entire city as a kind of an overarching zone, and then all the non-McCormick areas of the city is like a second subzone. So McCormick and non-McCormick are the subzones, and then there's a citywide zone, and really look at where projects are originating and what projects they're actually using to determine what their share of that project is, and then see whether the fee for each of the subzones is roughly the same, or if there's some disparity and perhaps there's some movement where we can move one project from one list to another to kind of adjust to get those to equalize. But I think that would be a more legally sound way to look at this. And
but it wouldn't be something that would be done by next Tuesday.
No, it'd have to be September, I think. But if you gave us the direction to do that, we would put him to work on running that analysis, and he could bring you back a revised report that took that approach. And I think we already have a contract with him, and there may be some room in the budget under our current contract to do that work. So we would just need council direction. And then added to that, I think Councilmember Ashby's work here, I assume that is the most recent project list, so it's the total amount of projects?
It has absolutely nothing to do with projects.
Yeah, okay.
That is simply based on the formula.
So I guess my question would be, should the fees come out higher than where council wants to end up, which projects are your lowest priorities so that we can remove those from the study so that you get a finished product that could potentially be adopted? And I guess what's the target that you want to hit for an impact fee?
Could that be our project at next work study, is prioritizing the project list?
But I think it's my personal thoughts on that, my reactionary thoughts, is that I would find it hard to put that list in a priority until I know where the chips are being generated.
Yeah, I think the other thing that Victor mentioned too along the same lines is we talked about existing deficiencies, and
Correct.
He said that through the modeling you can identify what percentage of projects may be related to a deficiency versus what is capacity, and so that may adjust the amount slightly and give us a more accurate
Okay, and that may
number.
answer some of my questions that I had last time, because it was counts and deficiencies and capacities when my mind was in that direction, and then this time my mind went to money.
Beck, if I may, I totally agree with you that we got to look at what projects are going to impact what projects, road improvements, but I think there is an opportunity to go through that list, and Nick calls it priority, I call it cut. Because once again, fixing the state's problems, I do not think is the City of Port Orchard's issue. And I think we need to get consensus on whether or not we're going to keep some of those projects in or out that would also kind of help with the bottom line. And then we can look at how these remaining projects, what improvements or developments will impact those remaining projects.
I got one more piece here too. Is I think it's really going to be important for us to continually look at, how successful this is being, and what projects are on this list. And I'm going to advocate in 2016 that we look at our committees, and there's a potentially a street or transportation committee that's this committee of the whole has been cumbersome. I think this process could have been handled a lot better, and if we had a smaller work group that was working on this and then brought a recommendation forward. They met with the committee met with the stakeholders and had a citizen process and brought a recommendation. Now, it's not to say that we wouldn't have tweaked it still, but I think we could have done this a lot better.
Mr. Mayor, may I make one more comment?
Please.
Before the end of the year, and if staff is looking for direction, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that, but for me, before the end of the year, I believe it is important that we make a decision on a transportation benefit district, whether we're going to create one or not. I think that decision should be made this calendar year. I believe that we should make a decision on our concurrency ordinance, and I believe we should make a decision on traffic impact fees before the end of the year. Those are three things that I think we need to do in a timely manner, and I think we need to keep moving those forward. And for myself, I would like all of those decisions made in by November. And I don't know if that's realistic for staff, but I read these things all the time, and we've got, our concurrency, we've got our transportation benefit district, we've got all of those documentation. And so I would like to see us not just talk about impact fees, but save some time and keep concurrency and our transportation benefit district moving forward also.
I thought we, I thought we actually talked about that at work study, where we told Carol and Nick that we were in favor of moving the concurrency issue forward, as well as the benefit district, but that the transportation impact fee, because of the complexities that we were dealing with, would be moved off to 2016, and the only thing we would be doing is adding the list to the comp plan, and then we'd pick it up again in 2016. That's what I remember from the last work study.
We were planning on bringing the concurrency ordinance to this meeting, but because the impact fee and concurrency ordinances are interconnected by a shared set of definitions, it was going to require some work to revise the concurrency ordinance to stand alone, and so we wanted to wait. It felt like we were getting closer to some sort of consensus on traffic impact fees, and we'd rather bring those forward together rather than have to rewrite each ordinance on two occasions to adjust for the adoption of the other at a later date when it's likely 2 months behind. So I think it's better to bring them all forward together. It's more efficient for us as staff anyway.
Well, I agree with what Becca's saying, but I thought we had some of that already in motion, so it sounds like we did have the concurrency moving forward. So,
yeah. Fred.
I'd just like to comment that I think Beck's 3 points are certainly ambitious. The only one I'd like to modify is if we are moving forward with the Transportation Benefit District, we have a conversation with the South Kitsap County Commissioner, Charlotte Garrido. I believe she is open to having a discussion about a Transportation Benefit District with us. I don't know that we'd be able to hash out anything in your time frame, but at least it would be nice to have a conversation.
If that's a possibility, who would initiate that conversation? Would staff do that, or how would we make that happen?
And why? I know you want to do that, but why?
Some of the roads are not used exclusively by city residents. So to me, a more egalitarian process would be if we could have some sort of district that included both the city and the county. I mean, ideally, you'd have a bigger pool of people affected by it and paying into it. I think we could ask the mayor to contact her, and I believe she's willing to bring staff as appropriate.
Well, I thought that I thought the direction from staff was to have the city develop the framework of a TBD first, and that was going to take some work with the city attorney to create that framework that then an actual board would be created that could include county, transportation, school district. So I think that's on the TBD, that's the first task, is to set the framework in motion, right?
Well, all the ordinances have been they're all been written, so the council could adopt them. Right, so that's the only thing left for that. But if you want to involve the county, that involves an interlocal agreement between the city and county. So that would have to be negotiated and drafted.
Well, right now I'm just talking about a conversation.
Yes, Mr. Lawson.
I think it's a valid conversation, and I think it's something, from my perspective, I'm not quite sure how that would work.
I have no idea either.
I think it would be worthwhile for us to maybe talk about it next Tuesday, just if the staff and the attorney could give us conceptually, is that feasible and how might that be structured? I appreciate that it needs an interlocal agreement with the county to implement, but again, the mechanics, I guess I don't understand.
Yeah. I'd want more information, I guess. Are we adopting a TBD and they are too, and we're agreeing to share these resources?
I don't know. Or can a TBD be defined to be something larger than the city boundaries? Mm-hmm. And does that mean that they have representation on the board? Or just mechanics of how that gets put together? I don't know. It'd be interesting to explore. I think it's worth exploring. But I think we need to understand it first.
I don't know the answer to it either.
I don't either.
I don't.
I can also think of the finances and how that's going to be moved back and forth between city and county, and where you collect and who's going to transfer the money and who's going to hold it, because there's going to be interest on the money, I would assume. And
what projects are going to get done, the city's projects or the county's projects.
Yeah. It's a good idea, but it's not as easy as I think it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it would be worth a discussion just to see how difficult that would be to put something like that together, just so we understand it, because I'm not sure. I envision sitting down with Commissioner Garrido and having a big question mark over my head, not sure what the questions are or their comments.
I mean, one thought that comes to mind to me is maybe it's a transportation benefit district that is the urban growth area. And one of my complaints in the world is that the county appears to neglect those roads that are in the urban growth area that we can potentially annex.
We could limit it to that area.
So then all of a sudden, we've got a funding source, and the county does too, to tackle those road maintenance issues in the urban growth area.
Yeah, I think it would be a great concept, but I'm just not quite sure how you put it together. So I don't know if that's something that maybe next week we could talk about it at the study session.
Right, and I can tell you right now it's in state law. I'm reading from 3673.020, and if you want to have a county city transportation benefit district, again, you have to have an interlocal agreement. And the boundaries of the district do not have to include all the territory within the boundaries of the participating jurisdictions comprising the district. In the interlocal agreement, you'd specify who the board members are. It has to be composed of at least 5 members, including at least 1 elected official from the legislative authority from each participating jurisdiction.
So, Carol, could you do that by project rather than by boundary?
No, you form the district, and then you establish what the projects are in the budget.
Okay. Let's try.
Just keep in mind that there's like a 6-month delay before you get money from the transportation benefit district, so the sooner you do it, the faster you'll get the money.
So would it be helpful if we included the RCWs that pertain to the joint benefit district process? and send them to you electronically so you can get a chance to look them over?
Oh,
Yeah.
You mean if I have...
No, I was saying we could send them to the council members and they could see what the
Sure.
state,
Yeah, no problem.
what the state requires to do that joint benefit.
There is
district.
some information too on page 22 of 62 in the transportation funding book that you were provided back in April. It speaks to a joint.
There was also conversation in the transportation updated manual in 2011, and one of the goals in there was to work with other jurisdictions, recognizing that many of the people traveling on our roads are not city residents. So we've identified that in various places already. My only concern is what the attorney had alluded to, in that I don't want this to set us back X number of months. But if it's useful and would be beneficial to us and we could accomplish it in a reasonable amount of time, I think it's definitely worth looking at.
So to wrap this up, did we have consensus that we wanted Nick to do that additional analysis?
Yes.
Was
Yes.
all
For the
hands-
zoning, for the impact
zones?
fee zoning, yes, I'm in favor
Yes.
of that.
Okay. And next work study, primarily what we're going to look at is prioritizing the project list and potentially discussing the transportation benefit district concept and whether it expanding into the county or not makes sense.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
You mean next week?
Next Tuesday.
Okay.
Nick,
Keep
is that,
talking about it every week.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Nick, is that possible to get?
Yeah, I'll talk to our consultant on Monday and give him orders that we need him to be here at the September work study and have a revised report based on an analysis through the model with 3 zones, and we'll see what we come up with.
Okay, but we're talking about this coming work study that you'll be able to.
Next week.
We already have the project list.
Yeah, no,
we're not going to have
We're just going to talk about the project list,
Right.
so that's
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
no problem.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
We would just move forward.
Well, that requires a hearing.
But I think it also, if we're talking about expanding the boundaries, we need to understand completely, get our questions answered, and then arrange for a meeting with the commissioner just to explore, is that something that's of interest?
Maybe I could jump in and just say something, maybe the elephant in the room. The city's a long ways down the path of defining its boundaries for the impact fees. And I think that if you really want to see if there's going to be a shift in a move towards a larger boundary with the county, I might suggest that the mayor go ahead and contact the county or someone at this early stage and ask them what they conceptually believe it might look like, so that we could air that out rather than us making a decision that might not align with what they envision. Because there has been a great body of work done to get us to where we are today.
How difficult
Make sure
would
we're talking about 2 different things, though. We're talking about impact fees as one issue, and the transportation benefit district is a separate.
That was my understanding too,
Yes.
John. Thanks for
But I think they've done the majority of the work on the benefit district also.
Yes.
Right. Well, you're talking about a project list that's included in the transportation benefit district.
No, it's just a boundary, I think.
No.
Well, it could be different. The
Different.
transportation benefit district, for instance, if you could just use that to preserve your existing roads,
Yes.
whereas the impact fee ordinance is going to deal with things that are not deficiencies, like maintaining roads.
Well, I may have misspoken then, but.
So how difficult would it be if we adopted our transportation benefit district now with our city, and then how difficult then would it be to amend it later if we wanted to include the county next year? Is that a viable solution?
It's a good
Well, I
question
think
for
those are
next
good
week.
questions for next Tuesday.
I think next Tuesday's discussion, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where my mind's going, if we could be prepared to answer those questions.
But one thing I do want to point out that brings up what you're saying is that if you're going to negotiate with the county for the transportation benefit district and include them, you might want to engage in negotiations for an interlocal agreement on impact fees so that you collect impact fees in the county for projects that send traffic into the city, and then the county also is able to collect impact fees in the city for projects that send traffic into the county. Because right now, the only process to do that is through SEPA. And if you, for instance, say, oh, county, you're approving this huge project and it's going to dump all this traffic in the city, and they don't listen to your recommendation with regard to how much money you think needs to go to the city to address that traffic impact, and if they don't listen to you, then your only way to handle that is to appeal it under SEPA. And I don't know how feasible that's going to be to file an appeal under SEPA of their project, and then perhaps even go into litigation if they still refuse to honor your request.
Well, that's a consideration, because some of the testimony that we've heard is if we have a higher impact fee than the county, they're going to drive development to the county. So that is a good consideration.
You don't have to have an interlocal. I'm just saying maybe you want to think about it if you're going to do an interlocal for the other.
Heard to talk about it.
Okay, staff, are you ready for next Tuesday? Do we have enough information and okay, expectation? All right. Any other discussion on transportation impact fees tonight? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to reports of council committees. Finance Committee, Mr. Clausen.
So we have one scheduled for the 25th here at 5:30.
Economic Development, Tourism, Ms. Ashby.
Yes, our next meeting is September 14th. And it will be directly following the Public Properties meeting here in this building.
Utilities Sewer Advisory, Mr. Patonsu.
Utilities hasn't met, and there was an email sent today about scheduling the Sewer Advisory Committee meeting. What was the consensus? Was the 26th going to work? Not for you?
Yeah.
Okay, the other meeting date didn't work for me. So can the three of us get together right after this meeting? And so our problem is figuring out a date that works. So we haven't had a meeting.
Okay. Public Properties, Mr. Cartwright.
Next meeting will be September 14th, 8:30 here.
Mr. Chang, anything to report on Lodging
The Lodging Tax
Advisory?
Advisory Committee is going to meet possibly next Monday at 4. We're firming that up.
Festival Chimes and Lights, Ms. Lucarelli.
We'll have 2 meetings in September 14th and the 28th. We'll also meet October 19th and November 16th.
We have a regularly scheduled August 18th work study session, a town hall meeting scheduled for October 15th, 125th anniversary committee meeting. We just had it. Do you have a quick report on that, Ms. Reinerson?
We're just finalizing the events. We also are finalizing a trifold brochure that includes a map of where the festivities will be taking place downtown that will be handed out, hopefully prior to the celebration day, but if not, it will be handed out during the open ceremonies. We have somebody working on that project. By the end of the week, I hope to send out information to the dignitaries that are being our guest speakers for that day to give them some instructions where they can park and what's happening with the event. We've already got interest from those dignitaries wanting to know what's happening so they can spread the word. So we're working on that. There should be some advertising going out not only in the South Kitsap area, but also all the way out to the Seattle area and to Port Townsend area. So those should be coming out in the next week or so when we get those ads finalized. What else? I think that's the Marbles tournament. We have received, I believe, about 14 or 15 applications. That's going to be happening down at the library. So we're moving forward with that. I think that's a lot of organizations through Port Orchard have different memorabilia that is available to the public. So I know that the Chamber has some, the POBSA has some, the Sydney Arts Gallery has some items. I don't know that the Saints Car Clubs has anything, the Seroptimus, the Rotary Clubs. So there's a lot of memorabilia promoting the 125th anniversary. So it's going to be a fun event. And also, we have committed to 10 cakes that serve approximately 96 pieces per cake. So we're planning for at least 1,000. Well, we're planning for like five to 10,000. So the cake is first come, first served, and we'll have about 1,000 servings. So you don't want to miss out on the cake and come on down. So that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Outside agency committee reports. Ms. Ashby, do you have any?
I don't believe I do.
Okay, Mr. Cartwright?
No.
Any others? Others? Seeing none, okay. I have a report for the mayor's office, and we have a new newsletter out, and it's not too striking. It's black and white, and it's the reason we picked black and white because we're talking about 125 years ago in a lot of this newsletter. So pick up your newsletter or find it online at our website. And let's see, the weekend that just got over with, we had a wonderful cruise. The Saints Car Club provided the cruise car show all day Sunday. The Port Orchard Bay Street or Port Orchard Fathoms of Fun organization had a lot of different things going on down there. It was really a great, really warm day, and the estimates are anywhere from 15,000 to 18,000 people came through downtown that day, and I believe it's the more robust estimate because there was an awful lot of folks came through. Anyway, beautiful cars, beautiful weather, beautiful downtown Port Orchard. So let's see, told you about the newsletter. I guess that's about it. So we'll go into department head reports. Mr. Dorsey, do you have a report?
The other thing to report is the pre-construction meeting for the Blackjack Creek Bridge is this Friday. So my understanding is that the contractors already had the notice to proceed, and as far as like ordering materials, piling, and so forth, that's already occurred. So we're really pushing hard to meet our state
fish window
grant deadline. So, you know, in the Bay Forward piece, that initial cleanup, the consultant that did that cleanup did a really good job, very professional, came in, got it done, and so they're in and out. So hopefully we're going to be in soon and get that project knocked out.
Okay, so that's pretty much completed in the footing area that we're concerned with.
Right, they've completed the amount of cleanup that fell within our work zone.
Okay, good. So that's just one more thing that we don't have to worry about. City Treasurer, Mr. Martin.
I have 4 items tonight, and the first one is that the budget packets were provided to department heads last Friday, and so we're starting to work on the 2016 budget, and we've asked that they be returned back to finance on September 2nd. So we're off and running on the budget. Also, our office is in the process of implementing the human resource module that you approved in the budget for the payroll. So essentially it's the online time cards and the employee information that's found online called an employee self-service module. The finance department has already processed our payroll this last time on the system. I'm very pleased with it, and I want to thank you for your support on that. We'll roll it into the clerk's office on the next payroll, and then to municipal court, and then into the community development group, because those are a little bit easier to do, and we'll get a good mastermind group of how it works. And then we'll move into the more heavy lifting, which would be in the police department, of course, because their hours are much more intense, working 24/7, and then also into the public works. But I think all the directors will find it I have found it much more in my role, much more easier to go in there each day and look at that. I know that Councilman Patonsu has talked about his firm using it and how helpful it is, and it is going to be a real time saver for the city. So thanks again. The other thing I'd like to mention is that Mark Dorsey and I attended Nick Bond's wedding on August 31st. July 31st. And so anyway, it was a great event. He has a wonderful wife, a wonderful family.
What did she say? Oh, there you go.
And he throws a heck of a wedding party, so it was very nice. And then also my quincentennial point tonight is a question for the council. What in the Port Orchard Municipal Code is the oldest statute yet today in place in the code? So it would have been, when was the ordinance written and what is the title of that code provision?
John, you were around.
Well,
yeah, but my memory's failing me.
Well, John actually might have used it as a young man, because what it was is, it was maybe not quite that early, but 1916, and it's the junk dealer provisions. So there's actually statutes that we remain on the books, and it's how we regulate junk dealers. So if you had picked up scrap iron and put in your wagon and went down, you'd have weighed your wagon and you'd have got 35 cents. So that's my comments for tonight. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Development Director, Mr. Bond.
The only thing I have is that concerning your November deadline for trying to get some traffic things done, I did have the foresight to schedule my honeymoon around council meetings. I will not be missing any of them. And the Finance Committee will be pleased to know that Alan made it a requirement for me to get married that my wife have her own insurance, and so she will not be coming out of the city's plan.
City Attorney Morris. City Clerk Reinerson.
I just have one piece of historical information since Mr. Martin had something to share, just to show you how far we've come related to alcohol, or what they call liquor purchases back. So in 1891, a minor was allowed to go and purchase liquor for their parents, as long as the parents have given permission to the saloon to allow that to happen. So we have some historical letters confirming that, yes, I did send my child there to buy alcohol for me. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. You can't do that anymore. Wow. So
thank you.
That's all I have, though.
Okay. Now we're at citizen comments. So would please would you come up?
I wanted to talk about was we spend a lot of money on these screens and they're not doing their job. And an easy, in my opinion, solution would be is after you have done your regular typing on this and on like what Ms. asked would be presented, you do another copy in a larger font size, and I would say that it would take somebody putting stuff on the screen and sitting in the farthest seats to see what font size would make it where people sitting in the audience could read something that you're putting on these screens, because we couldn't read a thing on your document. It's just black and white spots up there. And I've brought this up, I would say probably 5 to 6 times now over the last year or so, but something thought about and done about it. And the other thing I guess I was thinking about when you're talking about zones, you've already been cautioned that zones will cause problems. So I want you to keep that in your discussion. What are the types of problems that these zones on your traffic impact fees are going to cause you in the long run? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? No takers? Last chance? All right. What's your pleasure, Council? If I hear no objections, we'll stand adjourned.